All right, today we're going to break down two of the biggest economic challenges facing the United States. Now, on the surface, they might seem like totally separate issues. You've got this enormous mountain of national debt over here, and then you have the Federal Reserve's tricky balancing act with interest rates over there. But as you're about to see, these two are tangled together in a really dangerous way. Let's just start with a number that's, well, it's pretty hard to even wrap your head around. $37 trillion. That's where the U.S. national debt is sitting right now. And yep, that's the highest it has ever been in American history. But as absolutely massive as that number is, it's really only one part of the story. There's this whole other high-stakes drama playing out at the exact same time, and this one is all about the fundamental cost of money itself. Okay, so let's dive right into that first challenge, that enormous mountain of debt. I mean, where did it even come from, and why is it growing so incredibly fast? The easiest way to think about the national debt is like a giant credit card for the whole country. When the government spends more money on everything, we're talking defense, Social Security, healthcare, than it brings in from taxes, it has to borrow to cover the difference. And just like your own credit card, that balance just keeps on growing. And man, has that balance been shooting up lately. It's kind of like a perfect storm, really. You had the huge, massive spending needed to get through the COVID-19 pandemic. Then, borrowing money itself got way more expensive. And on top of all that, the cost of these giant programs like Social Security and Medicare are climbing as the population ages. And this is where the sheer cost of that debt really hits home. The annual interest payments alone, now this isn't even paying down the debt, this is just the interest, have now blown past $1 trillion a year. To put that into perspective, for the first time ever, the U.S. is spending more just on interest than it does on its entire military budget. Wild, right? So the crucial point here is that a debt this huge isn't just some number on a spreadsheet. It carries very, very real risks. If investors, both here in the U.S. and around the world, start to get nervous about America's ability to pay it all back, well, that could lead to a weaker dollar and could even potentially trigger a financial crisis. Okay, let's shift gears to our second story, and you'll see how this all connects. We're talking about the High-Wire Act being performed by the Federal Reserve, America's central bank. They have been fighting their own huge battle, this one against rising prices. Just think of the Fed as the driver of the economy. They've basically got two pedals. When prices are getting out of control, that's inflation, they hit the brake by raising interest rates to cool everything down. But when the economy is slow and sluggish, they hit the gas by cutting rates to get people spending again and to boost growth. For the past couple of years, the Fed has been, well, they've been slamming on that brake pedal hard. Back in 2022, inflation shot up to a 40-year high of over 9%, so they cranked up interest rates like crazy. And hey, it worked to bring inflation down, but now it's created a whole new problem. The economy is slowing down, leaving the Fed with a really tough call. And this puts them in this incredibly dangerous dilemma that affects every single one of us. I mean, what do? If they keep rates high to make absolutely sure inflation is dead and gone, they might just push this slowing economy into a full-blown recession. But if they cut rates to help the economy out, they risk letting that inflation monster roar right back to life. Now, here it is. This is the moment where our two stories, that massive national debt and the Fed's fight against inflation, smash right into each other. And they create this really dangerous feedback loop. Okay, so step one of this cycle. To beat back inflation, the Fed raises interest rates. Simple enough. That makes it more expensive for everyone to borrow money, whether you're a family trying to buy a car or a business that wants to expand. But here's the catch, and it's a huge one. Who's the single biggest borrower of all? The U.S. government. And it has to pay the interest on that $37 trillion debt at these new, much higher rates. And this chart, wow, it just lays out the consequence in stark terms. The Fed's actions, which were designed to cool down inflation, have caused the interest cost on the national debt to nearly triple in just a few years. I mean, look at that jump from $345 billion in 2020 to over $1 trillion today. That's an enormous new expense created purely as a side effect of fighting inflation. So you can see how this vicious cycle leaves policymakers completely trapped. It feels like a total no-win situation, because the solution to one problem makes the other problem way, way worse. It is a brutal trade-off with no easy answer at all. On the one hand, if the Fed keeps rates high, yeah, they can probably stamp out inflation for good. But That makes the national debt even more expensive and could easily tip us into a recession. On the other hand, if they cut rates to give the economy a little boost, they could let inflation get out of control all over again. And meanwhile, if you step back and look at the actual root of the problem, the debt itself, there are really only a few ways to fix it. You either have to cut government spending, or you have to raise taxes, or you do some mix of both. And as you can probably guess, none of those are popular ideas, making them incredibly tough political pills to swallow, especially in an election year. So you might be sitting there thinking, okay, this is some pretty high-level economic stuff, but why should I actually care? Because this isn't just some problem for politicians in Washington, D.C. It has a direct impact on you and your wallet. Believe me, this whole economic balancing act has a very real-world impact. The Fed's decisions, they directly set the interest rates on your credit cards, your car loans, and your mortgage. The government's huge debt, that can affect the stability of the stock market, which means it affects your savings and retirement accounts. And ultimately, the choices being made right now are creating a massive financial burden that our kids and grandkids are going to have to deal with. All of this just leaves us with one final and pretty urgent question. For now, the U.S. economy is still strong, but with that debt continuing to climb and the policy choices getting harder and harder every day, you just have to wonder, how long can the world's biggest economy keep this juggling act going before something, somewhere, finally breaks?